We're live. So, evening, everybody. Hopefully, there'll be some watchers very soon. It is our bi-weekly evening chat with the chaps from Mortgage Tribe. So, Neil's not here today because it's his birthday. So, if Neil's watching, happy birthday, Neil. He is, I won't tell you his age, you can all guess in the comments. But yeah, Neil's birthday today, so happy birthday to him. So you've just got me, guys. So we're with Vez and Tom again. So thanks for joining us this evening, guys.
Good to see you, mate. Good to see you, mate.
We've got some cool stuff to talk about. A very interesting thing that's happened today. In fact, something else has happened a few days ago as well. But the first thing that happened Trump is in power. Now, I'm not going to sit here and talk about politics, but I did put £100 on him to win, and I won 50 quid. So,
fair enough. I was just saying to you guys before, I've been away for 5 days, and the amount of things that can change in 5 days is quite crazy. I think the day I went, the budget got announced, and then Trump, and then base rate changing, and I was keeping an eye on my emails while I was away, but just the amount of emails coming from each lender sort of saying we're doing this for our rates, we're doing that, was quite astonishing, really. So yeah, it just shows a lot can always change in a very short period of time.
It literally has, hasn't it? I mean, it has been, like I say, about a week of crazy changes, right? Because we're going to talk about one of the big ones which happened today in a moment, which is the base rate change today. Went from 5%, am I right, down to 4.75. And in the last week, we've had changes with the budget. There's been 2 sets of changes to stamp duty, one of which I'm not too sure if everyone's aware of. So yeah, lots been happening to a busy end to October, coming into the end of the year. So guys, I really want to get your thoughts on this, the base rate. So this is live happening today. It's gone from 5% to 4.75%, which I believe we thought was going to happen, but now it actually has. What does that mean for us? Let's say it's me, I want to buy a home. What does that mean at the moment?
Almost nothing to you right now, unless you're taking out a tracker mortgage, to be honest. So that's the unfortunate thing that tends to get mixed up in the news quite a lot is that the base rate will have some kind of immediate effect on mortgage rates. The only time that will really happen is things like tracker mortgages, if they're tied to the base rate. That's when you'll start to feel almost immediate. And again, it won't be immediate. If you're halfway through the month, you might have to wait a little bit before that takes into effect, i.e. the end of the month or end of next month if you've just made a payment. But yeah, generally speaking, fixed rate mortgages don't really correlate with the base rate because they're based on swap rates, which kind of preempt the base rate a little bit. So in that respect, not great news to share, aside from the fact that the base rate is down, and that is generally a good thing. Not much better news to share in terms of rates. In fact, as we were just discussing off camera, quite a lot of lenders put up their rates as of last night.
Okay, so Tom, what for everyone listening? What's a swap rate? So, Vez, you mentioned casually, which is fair enough. What swap rates were already lower before the base rate came down. What is a swap rate?
Well, swap rate is effectively what the it's how the fixed rates are almost calculated against that rather than the base rate itself. And swap rates are there's different types of swap rates, to be honest, which I won't sort of get into. You've got the LIBOR ones and all that sort of thing, but it's almost kind of what the banks are sort of lending and borrowing money at. You've got 2-year money, 3-year, 5-year, and that sort of thing, and you'll see how that pattern goes, and then that very much dictates what fixed rates they're going to then offer to their mortgage customers sort of over the coming weeks. And I think they buy them in tranches and that sort of thing, which is why the base rate doesn't affect fixed rates immediately, because it's almost after the horse is bolted, because you've got the swap rates have already sort of happened probably a couple of weeks before, and they've been made on predictions as to what they think is going to happen. And we were talking off camera earlier, but as Vez rightly said, we've both had clients quite rightly texting and calling us today saying, does this mean that the fixed rate we've got on our current application can reduce? And actually, when you think about it, it's not linked directly, because you're borrowing money, say at 3.99%, which is a great interest rate compared to where we were 12, 24 months ago. That's actually lower than the base rate is. So that just shows you where it's based on a sort of different calculation. So yeah, there's just a lot of different factors that get into it. And also, don't forget, the base rate doesn't just affect mortgages; it affects savings as well, which is how banks operate. As long as they're they're giving out more, less or more on savings than getting it a higher return on their lending. And that's basically how banks work in a nutshell. So it's part of the whole sort of savings and mortgage cycle, I guess.
I suppose but basically then what you're saying is as well, for my money in the bank, the lower the interest rate, the less I make of my money in the bank, right? Is that how it works?
Yes and no, it swings and roundabouts, because at the end of the day, it does have a headline effect on mortgages, especially if you've got a tracker or variable rate. But if you've got a load of money in savings, then you're just not going to be getting as much on it. So, for the last, when we had, the base rate as low as it was for quite a significant period of time, if you were mortgage free and had a lot in savings, you were not liking that climate at all, because you're not taking advantage of lower rates because you don't need to borrow anything. You might be retired and mortgage free, but you've got a lot of savings, investments in the bank that weren't doing anything. So there was actually a demographic of people that weren't happy that the base rate was low. So it all depends where you are kind of in your financial lifestyle, I guess.
Vez, if I could get a crystal ball out to you, because we believe that maybe the base rate will go down again. And I was actually speaking to really interesting chap earlier on, so one of my clients who's in the financial world quite a lot, deals with a lot of companies being sold and things like this, and he's chatting that there's a plan for it to continuously come down next year by another 3 times. So if that is to happen, do you think that over the course of the next 3 to 6 months that undoubtedly mortgage rates or the swap rates might get better again and come down a bit more leading into next year, by mid next year?
We'd like to hope so, definitely, but it's unpredictable, isn't it? And actually, the Bank of England will be the first people to tell you that those forecasts are never 100% accurate. So it's just important to kind of expect the unexpected a little bit at the moment. And I remember conversations like a month and a half ago with people that were coming up to exchanging contracts and completing on purchases, a little bit frustrated that perhaps they were going to be missing out on some of the lower rates that were, if you followed the trend, they felt like there'd be some lower rates to grab if things got delayed by a few weeks or a month or so. And actually, things started to turn end of September and then throughout October, and we've seen rate increases, like minor increases. So to kind of illustrate that point, it's important to expect the unexpected. Political climate isn't incredibly stable. There's all kinds of conflicts around the world, and they have an impact on things. So it's just kind of important to not run away with optimism. I feel just be a little bit cautious with that. But yeah, fingers crossed they do, because at the moment it's still expensive to borrow money relatively to where we were 2 years ago. Relative to then, it's still very, very expensive. And I think the concerning thing is that the property prices have been super resilient, and we're kind of coming up to another peak in house prices. So my real concern is, as rates start to continue to reduce and demand carries on for property carries on growing, what's going to happen to property prices? And I think, there was an article out from Savills this morning suggesting that in the next 5 years that we'll see 25% rise in property prices, which I think a few people were like, hooray, but I couldn't help but think it's going to be difficult to borrow that kind of money unless you're looking at a 40-year mortgage for some people.
It's all relative, isn't it? It's it's great when great, my house value's gone up by 25%, but if you're looking to move and upsize and that property is also gone by 25%, it's the net result is what it is. But
you take 25% next year
in the next 5 years.
Next 5 years,
and it did come from Savills, so take that with however much salt.
I mean, that's a big increase. I know it's 5 years' time is a long way to go, right? But 25%, that's a fair chunk of money. So Interesting to see if that's true. I don't know if
Well,
it
I
will
mean,
be.
Dan, it's like the base rate is kind of like a gastric band on the economy, right? Because it was used, it went up, it tightened the economy when inflation was running away. So it was there to try and slow the amount of money being put into the economy, encourage people to save a little bit more and make it more expensive to take out money to buy expensive cars and houses and things like that. So when you remove that gastric band, there is a danger if you do it too quickly that the economy goes in the opposite direction again, and then you go back into a cycle of inflation. So I think the Bank of England are being very, very cautious, and you'd like to think they've got a plan, but plans change, forecasts change. So fingers crossed they'll manage that return to normality.
I meant to actually look. I don't. If you two know, do you know how the MPC actually voted on it?
8-1.
Oh, really? Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I didn't have a chance to look, but that's quite interesting because when it went down, because the big one was when it went from 5.25 to 5%, and that was quite a split vote. I remember. I think it was only by 1, whereas 8-1 is that's quite interesting. Yeah. So they obviously they're getting a bit more in agreement on how they want that to go, which is interesting.
Definitely.
Well, let's come off the old base rate because I want to know this question for you two, and I've got my opinion on it. Do you think the next 8 weeks will be busy? I mean, 8 weeks, let's talk it up till Christmas. Busy in terms of mortgages, people trying to buy. I believe so. Interesting to see what you think. My thoughts are it will be. And the reason for that, if people haven't been aware, is the stamp duty. Be careful how I say it. It's not set to change. The current way it is set to revert back to where it should be, basically, from the 1st of April, meaning that first-time buyer relief isn't going to be as much. Your relief is only up to 125,000 rather than starting at 250,000. So it's going to be a bit more expensive. And we feel that people are going to want to take advantage of that, right? Because ultimately, if you've got a chance of completing before the 31st of March, you're going to do it because you're going to save a few pennies. But does that mean people are going to think about trying to sell and buy and start that now rather than waiting until the new year because they might struggle to get it in?
I think I'll give you a live example. I got off the phone about half an hour ago with a client of mine that wasn't in a rush to get moving just yet, that is now, and purely for that fact, because if he completes after the 31st of March, it's going to cost him an extra £3,750, and that money's going to come off his deposit. So
yeah, and that's where that money comes, isn't it? It's actual cash you've got to find.
Yeah, which means a different, for him, it means potentially a different loan to value bracket, a worse interest rate, and less money to put up front, which means borrowing more. So my feeling is that if first-time buyers kind of come to market and flood the market over the next month or month and a half or so, then we could be in, you guys could certainly be in for a lot of extra work over Christmas, us as well. But that's not to say that January's really too late. I mean, we had our offer accepted on a house that we bought in the 2nd or 3rd week of January this year, and we ended up moving in on the 21st of March. So if you've got a really good solicitor, if you know what you're doing, got a great estate agent helping you out, then you can still do it. So I think it's probably going to be more than 8 weeks. I think you'll probably have a really busy January as well, only for the people that just want to save the money. There'll be somebody that kind of puts it off, and then potentially ends up getting stung.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think the key to it is, you're right, or are right. People who buy in January will still make it through in time, but it's very risky. Irrespective.
It depends if there's a chain. That's the thing.
It's a chain,
and it depends massively on your solicitor as well. You know, we've said this so many times, but the advantage of having a good solicitor is just so high. And you know, we're moving at the moment, and we're using a really good solicitor firm who I'm pretty sure this process would not be happening anywhere near as quickly as it weren't for what they're doing and them being on the ball. Whereas it feels like some solicitors are sort of very reactive to clients chasing them up, and if that's how they're going to work, then you might not be, getting in before that deadline. But if you've got a good solicitor, good estate agent, your mortgage broker's getting your application in very soon after you had an offer accepted, We talked about on the last stream. None of this sort of waiting around till the chain's closed. Now let's get you a mortgage offer on the table. It's valid for 6 months. Make sure you're not going to be the one holding up the chain. If everyone has that sort of thought process throughout the chain, then why not? Should be fine, even if you probably did have an offer accepted early in January.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key to it is, and we'll just reiterate, and anyone who's seeing this now or later, you've got to be prepared to make sure you've got everything in place, but also the right, like you say, the right people. So, a solid mortgage advisor like you guys who are going to be prepped and make sure there's no bumps in the road. The mortgage offer comes back nice and quickly because that can hold things up. Really good solicitor, somebody you can actually talk to on the phone, not just, a computer you're talking to half the time. Some of them that are just standard emails. And an agent that cares is gonna make a big difference too. Somebody that wants you to save that money, doesn't just care about it going through at some point. And on that, Luke's asked a really good question on the back of it. So he said, look, how many of your clients are aware of the reservation in stamp duty that you're speaking to? Doesn't seem well publicised. Yeah, exactly that. But that's why we're talking about it, I don't think a lot of people are aware because it wasn't that well publicised that stamp duty is going to change on the 31st or the 1st of April. So, yeah, the more we all talk about it as a group and share that, hopefully there'll be more people aware so they can try and save that money. Because, as you said, Vez, one of your clients could be saving, was it £3,500?
£3,750 we worked it out. Yeah.
That's a chunk of cash, right? It's not something you can just pull out your sofa.
That is double. That is the same amount that he'll spend in total on the move in terms of fees. Give you an idea.
Yeah. Another question as well. So I'll read this one out, Sherko. A lot of high street agents claim Boxing Day is a massive in the property world and everyone is buying a house on Boxing Day. But between the Christmas period and going to the New Year, do you see, from a mortgage perspective, more applications coming through? Or is it just a calm wave and not as bonkers as a high streets claim?
Again, you guys were taking the mick out of me last time, I think, because I kept bringing up how I worked at Nationwide for a while. But the banks do work a lot between, their underwriters and everything are back into work December 27th, depending on what day of week it is. But so nothing ever stops during that week, except your mortgage broker and solicitor might be taking a few days off. But if your application went in on Boxing Day, on Christmas Eve, for example, someone will be looking at that 3 days later at the bank for sure, or at the lender. So, Des and I are always sort of checking our emails even when we are off. But I guess you just get people having a bit of downtime and sort of asking, doing a bit of their mortgage admin. If they've got an application going through and that sort of thing, it's a time they can look into things while they're off work. But it's difficult. It's nothing really stopped. If your application is being processed, and nothing sort of stops during that time. In fact, it's quite a productive time. And by the time we come back in on January 2nd, we're sort of all caught up. But I don't know if that question is related more to mortgage applications or people looking to purchase, whereas Dan, you'll be able to answer that question a bit better.
Yeah. I mean, it's always been said that Boxing Days on Rightmove is the biggest spike of people looking, right? But that's just, people are at home and having a look on Rightmove. I don't think that correlates to people necessarily then suddenly put in a mortgage application the next day and being able to buy anything, because a lot of agents aren't actually open. They're not doing viewings and solicitors aren't open. So I think maybe for your point of view, it's actually really good, isn't it, if they're all open, because there's probably less people doing it, but they're probably a bit easier to handle. Yeah. From our point of view, I think for marketing a home, depending on what your personal circumstances are and when you feel is right to market, but actually it's a really good period to test what people are looking at and see it. But I don't believe that Rightmove for me is the end goal, not the main goal. So if you're on Rightmove and testing it over that period and it's a wrong price and you end up reducing it in January, you're behind the curve. So there's different ways that can be done by doing launches that we can do, for example, without Rightmove, where you can use that still and be busy over Christmas, but not necessarily being on Rightmove. But there's going to be no doubt that I think everything that's we always thought this anyway, but everything that's happening right now, I think you guys would agree, it feels like there's going to be a bit more positivity in the market, right? I know the base rate might not affect mortgages right now, but people will feel more confident in it. It just sounds like good news rather than always negative news. And I think people are going to come into the new year and really want to get things cracking on. I think it's going to be a bit busy period. And I suppose it comes with like one of the last things we touched on, wasn't it? We were talking about, it was a really cool stat. So 98% of what avocado, we're going to talk specifically about us and avocado actually, but what we listed in October sold, which is a phenomenal stat. It's higher than the average in the area. I need to get that figure, but almost 100% of what's being put to the market in October has gone under offer. Now, if that gives you an indication that actually the market is still very strong and very consistent and resilient, I think that's one of the words you used earlier on, Vez, that proves it, that people are buying and wanting to move, and things are going to, I believe, continue to get more and more confident. Whether that equates to house prices changing, I don't know, because stamp duty is going to change. There's different things that balance out, but I think it's going to be really busy coming into next year. It's probably going to be a lot of competition for a lot of houses being on the market, maybe more of a saturated market, more choice, and there's going to be a lot of buyers wanting to buy. So it comes back again to what we say, isn't it? Being prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think on the Christmas thing, I don't know. Obviously, you're the one that deals with that, but I really like the avocado beat the portals thing that you guys do. And I think that's a really great. Actually, I had a client ask me the other day as to whether or not they should put it on the market, and I had a different before Christmas as opposed to now, and we just kind of had a different. I had a different opinion from the estate agent, but it just shows that it kind of really depends on the person, the estate agent. But I'm of the view of if the plan is to just go ahead and you're just putting it off until January just because you think January is going to be a better market, then I don't know if that's the right thing. But yeah, I think the approach that you guys do in terms of beat the portals, I think is a really good one, because there's that kind of staggered release, isn't there, of information about a property that always builds up a bit more anticipation. I always quite enjoy when you guys post stuff and then later on more and more information becomes available from it. By the time it hits Rightmove, you feel like you know the property already because you've been introduced to it.
That's the idea. I mean, do you know what? I went to a really interesting event about a month ago. And it was really, really fascinating. Somebody made a really, really good comment. And it was, so if I take you two, for example, actually, you've recently bought a house, Fez. And Tom, you've recently sold a home, right? Or selling a home with us, which is cool.
Yeah.
So, and when you make a decision to sell your home, it's not that you wake up one morning and you go, I'm going to sell, and then you put it up for sale the next day on Rightmove straight away. However, you probably would have made that decision over the period of 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 3 months, 4 months, thinking move's going to be on, get my finance in place, think about the type of house I want to buy, where I want to be. It's a big bloody move, isn't it? Let's face it. It's at that moment in time, it's the biggest thing you're going to sell, going to buy. It's big decisions. So why, when you go and get your couple of agents out, does everyone just talk about how quickly they can shove it on Rightmove? Because you take all that time to think about it and you rush it onto Rightmove and put it out for sale. Well, actually, it's your home. You should have the same level of care and attention taken to how you build that onto the market, how you find out what it's worth, how you really go and market it. And, you know, the beat the portals is the very first step on the blueprint. And there's a number of things in between before it gets to Rightmove. And actually, out of the last 10 properties we sold, 5 of them never made it to Rightmove.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we want. The exclusive home selling to the exclusive buyers that we are lucky enough to have through our system, and they see it first.
Yeah, and like you say, Dan, having actually had first-hand experience of this in recent months with you guys and with you, Will and Mike, that 98% figure, that just tells me that you guys are putting the property on at the right price for starters, because you're not just sticking it on at, you know, an inflated price and just hoping that the person will sign a contract and go with you, and then 2 weeks later you're looking to reduce it. It tells me you're getting it right straight away. And from first-hand experience, the beat the portals thing was almost like, for me, was like testing the water. Is this even on at the right price before it goes on Rightmove? Maybe we've got this wrong. Luckily we didn't, but, you know, if it was wildly inaccurate, then that can give you a little bit of a heads up. But just again, going back to the putting it on at the right price from the start and being upfront with that seller. Obviously, I won't name names and stuff, but since you guys have sold mine and had a sold sign outside the flat, I've had 3 neighbours on my road asked me, "Do you mind me asking how much you sold it for? Who did you use?" And I really like your marketing on it. And Will and Mike, and if you want to help out, Dan, obviously you guys work all in tandem together. But I'm confident they'll probably get 2 or 3 more listings in the next couple of months, just as a result of that. So again, it all goes back to my flat wasn't sat, rotting on Rightmove because someone said they can get me X amount for it, and it never occurred. It was a lot of people noticed, wow, that was on the market for a short period of time and sold at a price that I was obviously happy with. And that gets people talking. It just shows if you get it right from the start, there's such a snowball effect for you guys, where people obviously from the outside looking in are just very impressed with what you've done. So yeah, that 98% is a very interesting figure, but it doesn't surprise me in a way, the way that the experience I had of avocado anyway. And I haven't been paid to say that.
No, you haven't been. I'll sit your phone.
It sounded very much like an ad read, I know, but it's true. I'm literally going through the process myself.
No, I appreciate. Well, you are, yeah, absolutely. As we speak, aren't you? And getting through to the point, hopefully near exchange. And
yeah,
no, I appreciate the comments. I think everything we're talking about, whether it's from our point of view as Avocado, your point of view from Mortgage Tribe, we've touched on the quality of a solicitor with the process. Everything is about taking your time to pick somebody who cares, and I think that's the main thing. I know you two care, because Vez, you were just saying, we'll probably finish on this point. Was it something like there's a rate that's changing tomorrow or something like this, and you're going to stay on late to get it sorted out, where if it was somebody else, it'd probably just be at home already without going
yeah, I mean, I really dislike talking badly of like different advisors and stuff like that, so I'm not going to do it. But I think there's certain times where, we charge, and we're not scared to say we charge a fee for putting a mortgage application together, but we really feel like we earn that fee in the sense that we always go above and beyond to do what's right for the client. And that includes times like, tomorrow evening there's a rate that's being pulled at 8 o'clock and the application needs to go in before that. So you just have to get it done. And that may involve staying on until 8 o'clock and just getting it done and then doing the admin for it afterwards. But yeah, it's just little bits like that I always tend to think people don't really consider too much when they pick an advisor is, are they going to look after our best interests, and are they going to do it well? So it's the same thing with you guys. A lot of the time when we work with your clients as well, the feedback that we it's weird, isn't it? So our clients tend to give you feedback about us first. They'll say, "Oh, that was a great recommendation. They were really good." And then the same thing for you. So they'll say like, "Oh yeah, they were amazing," but they rarely come back and say it to the person that's been working with them first, which I find is a little bit odd, but it's fine. We share that information. And it's good to know that we've got this kind of like ecosystem and this relationship where we can just message each other at whatever time and solve people's problems very quickly, which is like so difficult for people. And I'll just end on this actually, because I had a really fantastic meeting this morning with a conveyancer. So we've been really looking to find a conveyancer that is going to be able to work with us in the way that we want to work. And I've finally managed to, I think, narrow it down to somebody that is going to take part in that WhatsApp group with us. So our clients, something we'll be able to offer very, very soon is that WhatsApp group with the mortgage advisor, i.e. us. The 2 clients is now going to have the solicitor in as well. So it's not, there isn't going to be any more chasing emails and things like that. So we're always just trying to remove those pain points for clients and trying to make it as easy as possible. And it's constantly. That's
going to be really cool, right? Innovation, trying to change something again, which is going to make things even better. So no, that's really cool. Well, look, I think we've had a really good chat. We'll end on this one. Ali has just put, I didn't know the old Boxing Day launch con was still going on. He's listed us before a competitor. Yeah, probably exactly what it is. It's just telling people what they want to hear rather than what they need to hear. So, right, guys, lovely to talk to you again. Thanks for your time this evening. If people have watched this now, they're watching it later, got some questions, or if you're thinking of buying soon or selling, give us a shout. We're happy. We're normal people. We do work into the evenings, unfortunately, and we're here to help and drop you a message. So our details will be in all the posts. We'll catch up with you all soon.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.